Throughout Melee's history, only a handful of characters have won big tournaments. In May of 2020, something huge occurred in the Melee tournament scene. Roy is a character that is similar to Marth, but Roy is the 6th worst character in the entire game. So, what happened? Well, Zain, who is primarily one of the best Marth players in the world, decided to go from using his main Marth to now using Roy, having to adapt to the character's weaknesses in tournament. His reason for the change of characters:
it's that people don't know how to play against Roy. They don't really know how to edge guard him, DI his throws, play versus him in general.
With this, players would have to straight up learn the matchup as they go. Since Roy is also a low tier, no one wants to walk away with a loss to a bad character, which adds another layer to the pressure. With now changing his main for an upcoming tournament, he'd also change his tag to Don't Test Me, his alter ego that would in fact test others. One day, he decided to enter a tournament with Roy, when suddenly, history was made. This is the story of Don't Test Me, the Wrath of Roy. As said earlier, Roy is a low tier. Why? Well, for one, Roy has a sword that can be described as having a noodle as a sword. See, the sword is able to reach opponents at a long range, but greatly lacks the powerful sweet spot that Marth's sword has. Instead, the sweet spot of Roy's sword is located towards the lower end of the blade. This means that Roy would have to somehow find a way to get into the opponent's range for a punish. He is also a fast faller similar to Fox and Falco, where they are easily juggled and killed. Another downside is that Roy's aerials are almost useless and laggy. Again, Roy just cannot seem to find a way to start a string even at far distances. However, one very big advantage in his toolkit is that Roy can rely a lot on crouch cancelling, which essentially means getting hit while crouching and reducing your knockback, which most Roy mains use to down tilt as a combo starter and later forward smashing as a kill setup. He also has great speed and can duck under attacks. Roy has to work immensely if he wants to take a game off any top tier character. But what if a top Marth main decided to give Roy a try? May 16th, 2020, Rona Rumble's East Coast 3 was getting ready to start. Since this was an online tournament, there wasn't a need to bring huge old CRT TVs. Players for the first time could enter a tournament in the comfort of their own home. Big names would enter a tournament such as J-Flex, Ginger, Bobby Big Balls, Reeve, KJH, Aklo, and Don't Test Me himself, with Roy.
So we're gonna play Roy tonight in Homemade Waffles' tournament.
When the bracket begins, Zain gets a quick 2-0 and moves on to face against J-Flex, a prominent Sheik main from New Jersey in a best of 3 set. When the game begins, the first thing we see from J-Flex is that he's playing a more campy style, not throwing out moves, and mainly just moving around the platforms, which is an odd thing to do against a low tier. Could it be that J-Flex is already nervous? Homemade Waffles, the tournament organizer of this tournament, even references how J-Flex is playing very safe against Roy.
My man J-Flex is showing Zain way too much respect. Bro, if I'm playing Roy, I'm walking forward. I'm not giving a fuck.
J-Flex takes the first stock. When Zain comes back, he is able to get hits in, but cannot seem to close out the stock, until an edgeguard opportunity arises and kills Sheik at 199%. That's almost equivalent to Falco killing Jigglypuff with a pop-up down air at 175%. Somehow, Zain gets the lead with an empty hop forward smash. J-Flex brings it back. Zain hits a unique combo.
Ooh, that's cool he's laughing at Roy. That's how I know Zain's like getting too good.
But J-Flex goes back to camp around the platforms but Zain's Roy is in his head.
Roy was in Melee before as a Fire Emblem. I believe it. Oh my god. My man's just really clapping people with Roy. That's crazy.
Zain wins the game. He learned that if he keeps sticking with this game plan, he can overcome this obstacle. But a few minutes later, J-Flex takes the second game, which means that whoever takes the last game of this set moves on to the next opponent.
Spot dodges though. With the neutral. Oh, yo. This is insane. Don't test me.
It's getting down to the wire. Now all Roy has to do is close it out.
Damn, dude. That's crazy.
Jeez.
Don't test him, dude.
Oh, dude.
Zain wins 2-1. When he moves on to the next match, there is a problem. He comes across Toussaint, one of Melee's best Jigglypuff mains in the world. One of, if not, Roy's worst matchup in the entire game. Normally when Roy plays against a character like Fox or Falco, he can manage to get in using a mix of dash dance grabs, racking up percentage with up throw chain grabs, and small combos that lead to death. But with Jigglypuff, there's almost no way of doing that. Roy has to be extra careful, or he could face a rest punish. When Jigglypuff is in the lead, this will force Roy to approach, which could result in making more mistakes and taking more damage as the set goes on. Don't Test Me will have to somehow find a way to outplay Toussaint. The match is a best of 5, and game 1 is pretty close. Zain does a forward throw and goes for a forward smash.
Yeah, real. That tipper is just sad.
The sad part is that after surviving the F smash at 140%, Toussaint takes the first stock instead, putting Toussaint in the lead. Zain, adapting to Puff intelligently, uses a strategy where he racks up percentage, and when Puff reaches a high enough number, he does this.
Up throw? Damn, that's legit just how he has to kill him. Is Roy up throws, like, is it stronger than Mars?
What's even more impressive is that Roy now has the lead. Zain then tries to go for the unthinkable. What you just witnessed here is something only specific to Roy. This is the reverse up B. And although Zain didn't get the correct hitbox, Jigglypuff at any percentage, even 0%, Roy has the potential to do this. This is a game changer in the matchup. But even with this tool, Roy still struggles abundantly. The match is very even, but Zain takes the lead with the whiff punish F smash. Toussaint closes the stock with an edge guard. Meanwhile, Roy does a forward throw into reaction tech forward smash. Zain now has a game win. Since Toussaint lost game 1,
Yo, that's crazy. Is he really gonna stay Roy for Dreamland? He beats him on Dreamland, bro. I mean, he just better player than you. I don't know.
he counterpicks to Dreamland for game 2, the biggest stage in the tournament rules. Match 2 is mostly neutral exchanges, when Toussaint now ties up the game score, now being 1-1. The games would in fact be so close that each match would at least be a last stock situation, which eventually would lead up to the last game of the set, making the points 2-2. Game 5. Who will advance in the bracket? Zain uses his forward air to wall out Toussaint, but Toussaint gambles with the neutral B and gets punished with an up throw kill from Roy.
Oh, I think that was a good attempt, but I lied.
Toussaint comes back and ties it up. He destroys Zain's stock with a 0 to death. In what way can Zain manage to bring it back? This is the first time we see Zain having to approach more frequently since he is now behind. Zain needs to adapt quickly. Panic is beginning to set in as he starts taking damage. It is now a 3 stock to Jigglypuff against Roy's potential last stock. Zain by now has to find something that can keep him alive. He does some down tilts, but it doesn't lead to anything. He gets a forward smash.
Alright. Let's see if Don't Test Me can bring it back. Yo, this would be a hell of a comeback. I actually think it's doable.
Toussaint tries to style on Zain, but there is something that changes within Don't Test Me. And now, he begins to test Toussaint.
Counter that rollout? Yeah, it's probably too risky though. Oh! Yo, he did that so bad. Oh shit, okay. Yo, we got a game. If I'm Roy, I'm not approaching. Oh, wait a minute. Dash Dance his transformation out. Yo, one good hilt from Roy and Roy will win. Oh shit.
Even when resetting to neutral, the battle is intense.
Shit, oh wait. Oh, that air dodge, he fucked up. Oh.
With all these small hits that Roy has been getting, Roy has somehow managed to bring this back.
One grab and Don't Test Me wins. Oh, it's game. Oh no. That didn't kill?
It is now time to end this.
No way. Oh my god, he really came back and with that lag too?
Fucking heart.
Bro. That was fucking crazy. I can't believe he won that. Yo, Don't Test Me wins. 3-2, baby.
Zain advances in the bracket. Noticing that he has to play KJH, one of Melee's most technical foxes, he will have to play with caution. And if he wins, he either gets to play against Bobby Big Balls, or Kentucky's very own Marth main, Reeve. But he has to win 2 consecutive matches if he wants to advance to the grand finals. But unfortunately for Zain, KJH takes the first 2 games, meaning that KJH needs 1 more point to advance, and Zain would be dropped down to the loser's bracket. But something was building up in the heart of Zain. The Wrath of Roy Awakens.
Counter. Oh, that was nice too. Oof. Stop. Oh my god, dude. This is crazy. Reverse 3-0? Don't test me? bruh! No way! Oh my god! I'm losing it! Oh, pivot. No. Oh, I was like, yo, he make his back from that? Oh my god. What the fuck? What am I watching? Dude, I've never seen no shit like this before. This is crazy.
Zain does it. He defeats KJH with the reverse 3-0. And now, he moves on to face against Bobby Big Balls. The difference is, Zain crushes Bobby with a 3-1 win, positioning himself in the grand finals. Zain is in the winner's side of the bracket, but there is another story in the mix, in that Ginger lost in the first round of top 16 to Reeve, and had to beat 5 different opponents to get to grands. Ginger is at max momentum, looking to make one of Melee's craziest losers runs in history. On one side, we have a Roy, a low tier that somehow managed to make it to the very end and just needs to win one more set to make history. On the other, a Falco that made a long losers run that has to now face the pressure of losing to a low tier. Once the match begins,
Yo, he's bringing it back. Up there? No, okay, we reset. Alright, Ginger wins the first set 3-1.
Ginger resets the bracket, which means they have to play another best of 5. This is where the true test comes in. They each go back and forth winning games until it's now the last game. Game 5. Will Don't Test Me take this tournament? Or will Ginger defeat Don't Test Me once again?
Game 5. Don't Test Me versus Ginger. This one game will determine who gets a bag. Oh, that was a good edge guard. Yeah, Roy has never played for this much money probably in the history of ever. Don't test me. He's trying to get in, but he just can't. Oh, Ginger fucked up. Yo. Don't test me, bro. Damn, we got Ginger playing massive. Oh, shit. Okay. Oh. Nice. No follow-up. Ginger just playing mad patient now. I think he's a little shook, dude. Oh, no. And he DI'd that down throw awful. Yo. Don't fucking test this guy. Oh, yo. And he crouched it down tilt? No fucking way, bro. Okay. Alright, y'all. Last game, last stop for the tournament. Who we got? Ginger or Don't Test Me? I don't know. Uh-oh. Oh my. Okay, Ginger's going off. If Zain gets a fucking grab though, he can win. Oh no, not that, Ginger. Not that. Oh, he's like, yo, if he rolled in, he was gonna let it rip. Oh my god, this is fucking epic. No.
Nice. Peace out, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm not upset, but I just don't want to have to deal with whatever I'm about to experience. So, have a good one. GG's to Zain. Catch you guys later.
Son! What? Son, are you serious? Oh, are you serious? I can't believe he won this fucking tournament.
One of the most historical moments in Melee's history. Don't Test Me proved that any Roy could win any tournament. And don't forget to never test him. Oh, what the? Oh! Oh my god. Oh, hey. Oh my god, I'm ugly. Is this what people see? What? Dude, I think it's so crazy how, like, Zain or Don't Test Me brought Roy to, like, the craziest level, right? I've never seen anything like that happen in my entire life. It's crazy. I'm like, what the heck? I think it's just so interesting seeing a low tier come out on top against, like, top tier characters and winning a tournament. It's crazy. Like, who does that? You know who does that? Don't Test Me. So yeah, this is my first time using a green screen, and I just want to try it out. So yeah, as you can see, I got a haircut, so I'm pretty happy about that. What do you guys think? But yeah, I want to stream more. It's just that, dude, I think just balancing, like, making videos and, like, trying to stream is really hard, and I want to do that, like, really bad. Oh, now you guys can see my crooked nose up close. What do you guys think of that? Oh my god, my T2. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, sub to this channel. What else? I have a Snapchat, but I don't want you guys to, I don't want the parasocial viewers following me, you know what I mean? Follow me on Instagram. Yeah, follow me on Instagram. Dude, I wanna put like cool ass like fit pics on that, you know what I mean? Like I wanna like drop some pics before a video drops, you know? That's what I wanna do. That seems fire. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love you guys. Mwah. Bye.